Hello everyone and welcome to my education blog. My name is Dr. Jeffrey Allen Hinton and today I'm going to be talking about the question formulation technique. Before we get started, I would appreciate it if you would click on the subscribe button and the notification bell so that way you don't miss any future content. In the 21st century classroom, teachers should strive to produce independent learners who take responsibility for their education. Unlike education in the past, in which students were required to memorize a relatively static body of facts, today's education system should prepare students for an incredibly fluid world. What we believe and know to be true today could be made obsolete tomorrow. Computer technology and the internet have profoundly democratized information so that anyone with a smartphone can find information almost any time and anywhere. Best estimates suggest that at least 2.5 quintillion bytes of data are produced every day. That's a 2.5 followed by 18 zeros. Facts and data are essential, but knowing what to do with that data has taken precedence. That includes knowing what questions to ask. Asking the right questions has become the new currency of the 21st century economy because students skilled in asking good questions lead to independent thinking and creative solutions to persistent and vexing problems. Like most teachers, I spend a significant amount of instructional time asking my students questions. It's one of the most effective and time-honored pedagogies, famously going all the way back to Socrates. But getting my students to ask their own questions, now that's a bit more problematic. To become more proficient in this area, I recently had the opportunity to participate in the Harvard Graduate School of Education's online workshop called Teaching Students to Ask Their Own Questions, Best Practices in the Question Formulation Technique, or QFT. In this blog, I'm going to describe the QFT and how to implement the strategy with your students. University professors have recognized the need for students to ask their own questions as a fundamental skill required of all students to succeed. Stuart Feinstein, the former chair of the Department of Biology at Columbia University, stated that, quote, "We must teach students how to think in questions, how to manage ignorance." Leon Botstein, the president of Bard College, pointed out that, quote, "The primary skill should be analytical skills of interpretation and inquiry. In other words, know how to frame a question." And Nancy Cantor, former chancellor of the University of Illinois, stated, quote, "The best we can do for students is to have them ask the right questions. Yet, despite the desire for students to ask their own questions, few actually can." According to Dr. Allison Head, the director of Project Information Literacy, only 27% of college graduates reported that their college prepared them to ask their own questions. But the process of students asking their own questions dissipates long before they reach the ivory tower. A study in the Journal of Child Psychology and Psychiatry pointed out that young girls from working class and middle class families asked between 24 and 29 questions per hour while at home. At school, the same girls asked on average 1.4 and 3.7 questions per hour. Why did this happen? Why are young people interested and eager to explore the worlds outside of school, but in school become passive bystanders of their educational process? Research indicates that asking good questions increases student engagement and achievement. For example, studies of metacognition, that's the awareness and understanding of one's thought process, show that when students formulate their own questions, especially at the beginning of a lesson, they improve learning by nearly 50%. In addition, a meta-analysis published in 2011 shows that curiosity did indeed influence academic performance. In fact, it had quite a significant effect, about the same as conscientiousness. When putting together conscientiousness and curiosity, it had a substantial impact on performance as intelligence. The Right Question Institute created the Question Formulation Technique, or QFT, to make democracy work better by teaching a strategy that allows anyone, no matter their educational income or literacy level, to learn to ask better questions and participate more effectively in decisions that affect them. The technique is pedagogically straightforward and consists of 4 steps. The first step, students produce their own questions. Step 2, they improve those questions. 3, they strategize how to use their questions. And 4, finally, they reflect on what they've learned and how they've learned it. The Right Question Institute points out that teachers must follow 4 facilitation principles for the QFT to be effective. That is, they must monitor student adherence to the process, they do not give students examples, they do not get pulled into group discussions, and finally, they acknowledge all contributions equally. The first step in the QFT process is for the teacher to generate a question focus, or a Q focus. Developing the Q focus can be accomplished by showing students a provocative image, a quote, a video that pertains to the lesson for which you want students to generate questions. Next, have students working in collaborative teams generate questions in response to the Q focus. There are a few simple rules for this process. Number 1, ask as many questions as they can. Do not stop to answer, judge, or discuss with students their questions. Students should write down every question exactly as stated, and then change any statements into questions. Students can record their questions using standard poster paper or using technologies such as Flipgrid or Padlet. The next step is to have students improve their questions. Have students indicate if the questions they created are close-ended or open-ended. A close-ended question can be answered with a simple yes or no. An open-ended question requires more in-depth thought and discussion. Explain to students that both types of questions are suitable depending on the question's purpose. For example, if you seek basic information or you need a quick response, a closed-ended question would be appropriate. On the other hand, if you desire a more profound understanding of a topic, then an open-ended question may be a better choice. Next, students will select one closed-ended question and then convert it into an open-ended question, and then take one open-ended question and convert it into a closed-ended question. This step will require students to think more deeply about their questions, engaging in metacognition. The next step is to have students strategize. Students will prioritize their questions by reviewing their lists and selecting the 3 questions they consider to be the most important related to the Q focus. After the students have chosen their 3 questions, ask them to think about why they selected the questions that they did. Next, ask students to think about where their priority questions are located on the list. Are they at the beginning of that list, or are they at the very end, or maybe in the middle? The next step is called the action plan. Have students think about their priority questions. What do they need to know, or what information do they need to answer those questions? In other words, students will need to think about how they're going to research their priority questions. They must consider what sources of information they will use and whether they have access to that kind of information. Students should also ask themselves what they will need to do. In other words, they will have to consider the tasks required to answer the questions. The last step of the strategy component is to have students share what they have done. Sharing could consist of 4 steps. Questions, you change from open to closed. Your 3 priority questions and the numbers in your original sequence. The rationale for choosing the priority questions. Next steps from your action plan. The last step is to have students reflect on their learning by thinking about what they've learned and how they learned it. Teaching students to ask their own questions can be the most critical skill we can teach students to help them become independent, creative, critical thinkers, which are essential 21st century skills that all students need to succeed in college, careers, and civic life. When students ask their own questions, we empower them to think at higher levels, showing them how to become creators of knowledge rather than just consumers of it. When students ask questions, they learn from one another. No one student is as intelligent as all students working together. When students ask questions, they push each other in new and unexpected ways of thinking and growth. And finally, the teachers also benefit when students ask questions because then they're able to explore, assess, and plan for further learning experiences by better understanding what their students know and areas that they require growth. Remember, guys, as Albert Einstein once said, quote, "The important thing is to not stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing." Thank you for watching. My name is Dr. Jeffrey Allen Hinton, and I'm located on the web at www.jeffreyhinton.com. That's jeffreyahinton.com. There you can find my blog, lesson plans, as well as other free content. If you like this video, I would appreciate a like and let me know what you think in the comments section. Thanks for watching and have a great day.